Hi there, beautiful kind setters, and thank you so much for tuning into this video. This is a safe space where we explore how kindness plays a pivotal role in a winning mindset. And if you're curious about the difference between an OBGYN versus a midwife, then this is the perfect place for you because I've experienced both. My pregnancy, I'm pregnant right now with our second, and the midwife versus OB experience was just night and day. I'm going to go into that in detail. I'm also going to talk a little bit about doulas as well, because we have a doula this time and a midwife. And some people think it's all up to you and your preference and your intuition and what you need. But yeah, we wanted a doula and a midwife this time, so it worked out beautifully. And we have the support of just amazing women that really believe in me and my body. And so I want to go into the differences. The OB, so let me talk about the OB a little bit in the hospital system. So if you are really wanting a natural birth without any kind of intervention if possible, and you have a low risk pregnancy, and even if you have gestational diabetes like I do, and your diet controlled, you're still able to have a home birth, a birth center birth, and even a midwife assisted hospital birth. I don't know much about that, but what I've experienced was with she's a home birth midwife, and she's Christian and she's amazing. So that's our care provider this time. But the first time we had an OBGYN, we liked him a lot. The thing about that was that his practice is like, when he's on call, then we'll get him. So I was like, no, I really want you to deliver this baby, and I want it to be you, because I know that other people in your practice aren't as, I want to say gentle, but it's like, aren't as supportive of natural or gentle birth. So I'm like, I really want it to be you. How's that possible? And he's just like, we have the on-call system, and if you happen to go into, if you're in an induction or a C-section, then it's going to be him for sure. But if you are just, of course, your body goes into labor whenever your body goes into labor. So that was really hard for me, because that was kind of a stress factor, because I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to get you or someone else, or if this other person that I've heard not great things about, she's in your practice too, but she might be on call that day. So that was a big kind of like a stressor for me. Whereas if you're going to a birth center and a midwife, you know all the midwives there. They're so friendly, or at least you know your main midwife, and it's going to be her, or maybe a backup midwife, but you have a community of women that are here to support you. And just like talking about the appointment system. So I'm going to go into the appointment systems. So it was so quick with the OB. I mean, he had so many people there. He did spend a lot of time answering our questions, which he was really patient, and he was highly recommended. He was great, but there is only certain windows of time when you go to the OB. So versus with the midwife, they have more freedom of time. I think maybe because they're not as booked up. But they are starting to become popular, especially with COVID and people not wanting to deliver in hospitals. They're exploring different options. So it was like less pressure there, and I was able to ask so many amazing questions. So that was number one. The appointment system was totally different. Number two is just the care. They did a lot of preventative care for midwives, because they knew that I had gestational diabetes the first time. And even the test was different. So I drank like all that gross sugar water that you may or may not have heard of or experienced yourself. It was just like really viscous, like sweet, like not viscous, but it's just like thicker than Gatorade, I feel like, but it was sweet like Gatorade, but sweeter. They want to spike your blood sugar levels so that they can take your blood sugar and see if your body has a hard time of processing that. But in the midwives realm, I got to drink this, I think it was called like a naked smoothie or something. And it was like a banana, it was honey, it was like strawberries and some other berries, and it was delicious. And I really enjoyed that. And I think, and she was also saying like, I don't feel comfortable giving my patients that drink or my clients that drink that OBs do, because it's not really an accurate depiction, because we're not really drinking like all that sugar water. She's like, it's more accurate if you actually give real whole foods. And that I really appreciated that too, because it's like a more holistic and more representative test. I think it's like a more accurate test, because nobody's going to be drinking that much Gatorade or that sugar drink on a regular basis. So I just appreciated how just the holistic aspect, how they cared for the woman, they cared for, they took into consideration a lot of different factors. It wasn't just like straight up like, here's the sugar, here's what we see, but it's like, okay, let's take into consideration actual environment. Let's take into consideration preventative if you had it before. So that was super helpful. They helped me with my diet. I learned so much about protein and how much protein you have to eat a day to avoid preeclampsia. They said like 100 grams of protein and drink like 100 ounces of water. I wasn't aware of that going to the OB, because they do more preventative for the midwives, whereas the OB is like more like after the fact. So I really like that. And whereas I can't totally reach 100 grams of protein every day, I strive for it, but I'm aware of that and I can work towards that. And I was eating just whatever with the OB. And they really keep me accountable too. My midwife is like really, really kind and just like hilarious. And she's always wearing dresses, and her assistants are wearing dresses. And I just feel like it's a much more woman-centered environment, where it's like just a very supportive environment. And whereas I did feel supported with the OB, it was different. It was like, I can be more myself, I can ask more questions, I can talk about like anything and joke around. And I feel like I felt like I was like, honestly, I feel like I'm with friends. And I don't know if midwives are all like this, but they're like kind of like weird. I mean, they all have their own personalities, and they're just like so like I don't know, they're just really weird. I don't know, because maybe they have to like find humor in their job, or they absolutely love their job. They love supporting women. And something that I said to them, I was like, you guys are so amazing. You support women like just in the most amazing ways. And they were just laughing, and they're like, well, this is how women deserve to be treated. This is how women deserve to be supported. And we're not doing anything like extraordinary, but it feels like it because it's so different with the other system. So I was crying during that conversation, but yeah, we're having a home birth, and they came to do home visits. So that was another thing that was different, is that the location is different. It's the birth center. Even when I was going there for checkups, it was just very inviting, pretty, like a lot of like woo-woo stuff probably. Even though I'm Christian, but I could appreciate that stuff. It was very like just calming, and I I just like the whole, this is less like rigid and sterile. Going to the OB's office was more rigid and kind of like cold. But even though our OB, like I said, we got lucky and we had a really funny, great OB, and he didn't end up delivering our baby because he wasn't on call that day, but he did schedule an induction. Whereas that was another huge difference, is that birth centers would probably not schedule, they don't schedule inductions at all. I'm like, probably not. No, they don't schedule inductions because they don't use Pitocin, of course, until it's like after, then they possibly could use that if needed for the placenta. But they allow the woman's body to work. So if that's you and you want someone to support you through and believe in your body and just know, you know yourself that you have faith in yourself. It is on another level completely when somebody else is like, you can do this. We're going to help prepare you for the birth that you want. And yeah, I feel like it's just like a whole nother level when somebody else is like, I'm experienced in this kind of birth and this is the kind of birth you want. And where the midwives are just like, you are capable of doing this. And like, even though they knew that I had Pitocin the first time and didn't have an epidural, they were really encouraging in that. They're like, this time will be great for you. It'll be really healing. And if you did it that time without an epidural, you can do it this time for sure. And I was like, well, I was like asking for the painkillers in the transition phase, and they were laughing, but it's just a completely different experience. And it's just like out of this world support. I think it's just love and support and care. And I know not all midwives are like the midwives that we have, but I've heard nothing but good about midwives. And I just, if you're in Southern California, I will put the information for our midwives down below because they're just too good not to share. I'm just so excited about this birth. And yeah, I do have fears of the unknown, and there's always going to be unknown, but I think my mind and I'm spiritually in a good place. And I'm trusting God. Our midwife is Christian. She's going to be praying through it. I was like, when I heard that she was Christian and she prays during when the baby gets stuck or throughout the whole birth, I'm like, oh my gosh, she is my girl. I'm like, oh my God, I want her. So yeah, our doula recommended her, and I was just like, oh my gosh, she is like my dream midwife. But and her assistants, the way they came in and how it all just came together is definitely a God thing. And so really trust yourself and trust where God is taking you. And if you feel led to call someone, or if you feel led to book with a certain midwife or meet them or talk to them, definitely honor your intuition and your instincts and just go for it. Because if you feel safer in a hospital, definitely do that. There's no right or wrong answers. It's just different experiences for everyone. If I could recommend to anyone, and I for different friends, right? If a friend is I want to give birth in a hospital and I want to have induction, or even, some people want to schedule their C-sections because they have a family history of big babies and they just want to schedule a C-section and do it that way. then obviously the hospital is the way to go for that. But a very specific friend, if they're like wanting to find out more about natural birth, they're interested in natural birth, they're interested in just like a different kind of support, I would 100% recommend Midwives. You would be in amazing hands. And worst comes to worst, you might have to transfer, and that's not even a bad thing. Like my midwives, we were just talking about like a backup plan and what would happen if we did have to transfer. And she's just saying like, then we would go to the hospital, and then and it's very rarely an emergency like the TV shows show that in birth, because she was like saying that we would be communicating this ahead of time. It would be all out in the open. People would be knowing what's going on. My husband would know what's going on. I would know, all the midwives, the doula, and then we could all make decisions together, and it would be well in advance. And so I was like, okay, knowing that, I was like, I feel really good about it, because we would be laboring at home anyway. And so it's not a big, like, to have the support of our amazing birth team laboring at home. Granted, they come later and we call them later, but our doula would come earlier than the midwives. But it's still just like, it's not a failed anything. It's just I heard this in a podcast. A transfer is not a failed home birth. It's not a failed birth center birth. It's just that the needs changed. And I was like, oh my gosh, this really clicked for me. Because I'm like, yeah, our needs change all the time. And it's totally perfect. And when we fight that, or when we judge ourselves for that being bad, then that's going to be really, creating a lot of internal conflict. But if we just say, okay, well, this is where it's going, we just go with it, and it's still the perfect birth story for me and my baby. And I'm open to that, and I trust God no matter what. And so that's like a very free place to be, I feel like, instead of trying to control every outcome. And if it doesn't go according to plan, then that's not good. But obviously we want the vision to go according to our vision, but God has other plans sometimes, and totally trust him. And I know we're in great hands. I feel like we're in better hands than at the OB, because they just believe in me so much. And while again, the OB was great, and I think even select your OBs, ask around. If you do want an OB, ask around, like, which OB is more open to listening to what you want, because what you want is important. And even if they don't 100% go with what you want, just the act of you voicing your what happens to your body is just a powerful thing. So thank you so much for watching. I totally believe in you and your birth. You can do this. If you want to watch a video about my birth with Pitocin without an epidural, there's two videos, actually, a longer one and a shorter one. The longer one, I go through the whole process. The shorter one, I go through mainly what it feels like. And I think both are really helpful information. It's just my experience, and I hope you get something out of this. And if you want to watch that, I hope you get something out of that as well. And just God bless you. You are going to do great in your birth, and just believe in yourself, because yeah, you deserve your own support and love. So take care, have a beautiful day, and always remember, be kind to yourself, because when you're kind to yourself, the world is a much kinder place for you and everyone else. Take care.